Depending on the player, sometimes it doesn't matter what conference they're in, what division they're in, what team they're on, or what it's going to take to get that player. Sometimes you just want that player no matter what. And that seems to be the case with the Knicks and OG Anunoby. Because according to an NBA insider, he states that even with the impending lawsuit that the Knicks and the Raptors have, the New York Knicks are still, to this day, interested in adding OG Anunoby to the roster. We're going to break down this report and so much more today. So be sure you're subscribed to the channel and have notifications turned on so you don't miss a second of the new content. And now, let's get started. The Knicks are still targeting OG Anunoby. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. I can already see you guys in the comments. Troy, why are you talking about the Raptors and the Knicks doing a trade, doing business? There's a lawsuit going on between both of these guys. We know they're not going to do business. Why is this a story? Why is this a video that you're doing? Well, honestly, the reason is Michael Scotto from Hoops Hype, an NBA insider, recently let us know that the New York Knicks are not only interested in Dejounte Murray from the Atlanta Hawks, but they are also showing interest still in OG Anunoby from the Toronto Raptors. Thanks to Bleacher Report for giving us this headline snapshot. New York has draft capital and expiring contracts to include in a trade if they want to go after OG Anunoby. And here's what Michael Scotto stated exactly about the New York Knicks and their interest in Anunoby. The Knicks also remain interested in trading for the Raptors forward OG Anunoby. Last season, the Knicks forward RJ Barrett came up in those brief trade inquiries, but nothing substantive materialized. That's likely to remain the case again unless New York blows Toronto away with sufficient first-round draft pick compensation and maybe another young asset. Shout out to Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype for letting us know this massive update about the New York Knicks and who they're looking to target during the trade season. OG Anunoby is not a surprise for the New York Knicks in terms of his name coming up. It is surprising, though, that his name is coming up this season. Do the Knicks and Leon Rose in the front office know that James Dolan and the Knicks are currently suing the Toronto Raptors? Do we not remember that? We also understand that because of that, they're likely not going to do business. Oh, and by the way, it's not like they were eager to do business before the lawsuit. The Knicks and the Toronto Raptors did business a while ago. The Knicks got fleeced in a lot of trades from Toronto, and ever since then, they never really did business ever again. I'm not saying they never could do business again, but look at all the things on the table right now. OG Anunoby, number one, he has a player option after this year. So if he's not traded, he could walk. He's also CAA. So if the Knicks want to, they can pursue him in free agency and get him on the Knicks that way anyways. So they don't necessarily have to trade for him. That's the first thing. The second thing is, like we said, impending lawsuit. It really means that these two parties don't want to speak to each other more than they need to. So because of that, and the fact of the matter is you need to communicate in order to make a trade, I don't see that happening as well too. But also, one of the things that was mentioned right there from Michael Scotto, and he mentioned that the New York Knicks, if they were going to get OG Anunoby, would likely have to blow away the Toronto Raptors with a package deal that had a lot of first-round picks, a young player, and assets like that. And honestly, for me, if you're asking me, if the New York Knicks did that type of trade with the Toronto Raptors, then absolutely you can say they got fleeced. There is no good reason to trade all of those assets for OG Anunoby, who is in a player option year, who can walk after this season, who's CAA and can come to the Knicks in free agency if he wants to. And by the way, have you looked at what he's been doing this season? Great defender, rising star in this league. All kudos to him. He's streaky. Three-point shot, streaky. Offense, streaky. What he's been doing on the offensive side for the Raptors, streaky. So whatever you want to say about him and what you love about him, what you love about his game, we have to acknowledge what this season has showed us. Other players have left Toronto. Other players had to step up. OG stepped up, but he's still playing a similar role last year that he is this year, even with less players that take the ball out of his hands gone. Why is that? It's really because I think, more or less, he's a top-tier role player. Maybe never going to get into that all-star level type of player. That's not a knock or a bad thing. That's just who he is. But if that's who he is, do you really want to give up RJ Barrett in a deal to get that player? Because last I checked, RJ Barrett and or Julius Randle, one of them needed to be traded in order for the New York Knicks to get a star or a superstar. So that's the type of player I'm looking to trade RJ Barrett for, a star or a superstar. All kudos in the world to OG Anunoby. He's neither of those things. He is a rising star in this league, a great defender in this league, great wing in this league. He fits the New York Knicks, their need, and what they need right now. So absolutely, if the Knicks could pull off a trade to get Anunoby, do it. And do I understand why they would be interested in a player like Anunoby? Absolutely, because besides Mikal Bridges, there is no other wing that I can think of that is young, dominant, and aggressive at their position in terms of how a wing needs to be like OG Anunoby. And that's why I think he would fit this team perfectly. I wish the Knicks could get him. I wish the Knicks in Toronto would do business. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think that they are. That's why this report confuses me a little bit. Murray, the interest there, I get it. I understand it. I hope that actually happens. I hope the Knicks land Murray. But the OG Anunoby stuff, last year, I understood it. This year, I still understand it. But I don't understand why they're still interested this year if really a trade can't happen. Do they know something that we don't know? Is it really more business than the lawsuit is telling us? Is the lawsuit one aspect and on this side and business on this side? And maybe the business dealings have nothing to do with the lawsuit. Now, I can't think for the life of me why those two things wouldn't spill over to each other. But if that's the case, okay, I'm up for it. Trade for OG Anunoby. But do not trade RJ Barrett and multiple first-round picks for OG Anunoby. Because that's a way that everybody in the entire NBA, myself included, would say the Knicks got fleeced. You cannot give up that many assets, that many picks, that many players, RJ Barrett, maybe another young asset, for OG Anunoby. I'm sorry. He's not the player you do that for. Regardless of whatever you think of him, he is not that type of player. Not yet. And even if you think he can eventually grow into that, I don't believe from what I'm seeing this season that he'll ever reach All-Star. And you want to give up all of these assets for a player that may never reach All-Star? I'm not with that. I'd rather the Knicks wait, try to pursue him during free agency, and see what they can do at that point in time. And if they miss, oh well, they miss, and they can go after another player potentially that can add the similar type of defense and maybe better shooting. We don't know who's going to become available, but we just shouldn't throw everything at the market and try to get the players that we think we need before we wait and realize that maybe that player can come here anyways in free agency, or maybe a better player may be available during this offseason. Sometimes time is your best friend. And really, the Knicks have been doing that. Patient Leon Rose, risk-averse Leon Rose. That's the one thing he's been doing. Giving the Knicks time and being patient. So if that holds up, then maybe the Knicks will find another opportunity in the offseason. The problem is, when you find opportunity, it means nothing if you don't seize it. If you find opportunity and look at it and let it go by and let it pass you by, you're never going to get it back. And that's why when you see opportunity, you have to seize it. You must. Because if you don't, then in my opinion, you're not doing your job as a GM or a president. One thing Michael Scotto mentioned here is that the New York Knicks' interest in OG Anunoby is likely going to remain the case for the entire season, and is likely not going to stop until the New York Knicks either make the trade for him, get him in free agency, or see an opportunity in OG Anunoby pass them by and he gets traded to a different team and re-signs there, which definitely could be the case. Trade deadline is still a few months away, so we have some time here for the New York Knicks, the Toronto Raptors, and a lot of other teams to jump in there and see what they want to do in the trade market, what players they want to give up, and what players they want to get. We don't know who's going to be available, who is going to be disgruntled, and who the Knicks potentially may throw all the assets on the table for if they become available. And the Knicks have been patient, sometimes too patient in my opinion, but that's what they've been doing. I expect them to continue doing the same thing, and I also expect their interest in OG Anunoby to remain high. So potentially, regardless of what happens, traded, stays with Toronto, whatever, he still tests out free agency and potentially might go to the New York Knicks. I think this is what the New York Knicks is potentially trying to do with leaking out this information and letting this information get out. because that's the only thing I can really understand as a why a report like this is coming out right now, because nothing has changed from this summer to right now in terms of OG Anunoby, the Knicks, that situation, and their interest. So this coming up right now is a mystery to me, is anybody's guess, but that's my best guess in terms of why I believe reports like this are coming out right now for OG Anunoby. But like I said before, if the Knicks are going to land OG, it's not going to be via trade this season. They're definitely not going to include RJ Barrett in that trade, even if they were going to pursue him via trade this season. An OG Anunoby move, an OG Anunoby deal, that trade, whatever it is, that occurs this offseason. That star trade you want, that occurs this offseason. And if it doesn't, then folks, I think Leon Rose's time as Knicks team president will be going by very, very fast. But what about you guys? What do you think about this report about the New York Knicks still being interested to this day in OG Anunoby? Let me know in the comments below, guys, because honestly, I would love to hear from you. But that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, go ahead and smash that like button, leave a comment below, and of course, guys, please subscribe to the channel. Until next time, Knicks fans. Peace.